going on. So it's not really going to be 5-minute beef stew, probably, but in general, approximately 5 minutes. Really just means quick beef stew or lazy beef stew. Lazy is the key word here because if it's anything but lazy, it's going to be too hard. So, Nick, wow, what? Oh, I got to turn my volume down. Sorry for the racket right now, guys. I'm boiling some water on my induction cooker, so I'm going to use that to kind of give myself a jump start on this beef stew. So I don't have to, maybe, I think it might cut like half an hour off of your cook time. So I'm going to start off on high, try to get it done quickly. Really just the meat and the beans are the part that takes a long time to cook. Everybody's so like, everybody just loves their refrigerator setup. It's so popular. What's going on? Linda, Ryan, and Nick. Alright, so we got grass-fed stew beef. And it's not organic, but it is $11 a pound. You'd think it would be organic for that price, right? But if it's truly grass-fed, like I'm cool with that. If it's grass-fed for like a week and then the rest of its life, it's against Hinduism. That's true. That is true, right? I mean, I don't know. Can you not eat beef in Hinduism? I didn't know that. So you could make. I guess you could make your stew with like just like beans and stuff, beans and lentils, and not use the actual stew beef. We're not like critically obsessed with having the beef, but in terms of I feel bad for being a meat eater, that's for sure. But I also feel bad for being a plant eater, to be honest with you. You know, a lot of like I like to say, I've heard the argument against vegetarianism. A lot of animals get hurt in the process of factory farming with a combine. Yeah, it probably will be just for us too, but it'll probably last like 36 hours, I would imagine. You know, you could have a couple bowls here, a couple bowls there. And it's about 1 to 1.25 pounds of beef is what I usually go with. Hey, what's going on? How you doing, son? I apologize for the meat part. Just ignore that part. There. Now it's not. Now you can't even tell if there's meat in there. We'll just pretend that it's not. Now we're gonna get to the beans. Let's see what we got here. Adzuki beans, organic adzuki beans. Nope, I didn't put adzuki beans in there. Hold on. I hope I'm not out of those. Those are kind of like the most important part. I almost always have a backup stash of stuff like that. Alright, we'll start with lentils then. Organic beluga lentils. These are like really small, black little lentils. They're basically just mini beans. You know, but I like to put a variety of different ones in. And I don't measure. I just kind of pour in what I feel like. I probably did like, I don't know, let's see. This thing is probably, what's that, like 1/8 of a cup? I probably did like 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of these. But I don't want to go too big on it because I got a whole bunch of other beans that I'm going to use. Other lentils and beans and things. I want to mix it up. So these are called French lentils. They're just little and they're green. They look like camouflage. Same thing. I'm going to do like 1/4 cup, 1/2 cup. This is definitely not taking 5 minutes, guys, is it? Alright, I got some boiling water. I boiled on the induction cooker just to kind of hurry things up, get this thing up to temperature ASAP. I didn't measure it. I just put in however much water needs to be in there. Basically enough to cover what you're cooking. But I don't really want to get a soup. And I want to get like a stew, so I want to put a little bit. If I get too much water in there, I'll put, yeah, you could make it, you could call it a lentil stew instead of a beef stew for sure. Yeah, it takes how much it takes, right? I like to cover it up, but if I get too much water in there, I'll put like flour, but not just actual flour, but coconut flour. Coconut flour is the only flour that's not actually flour. If you look at the ingredients and the nutritional aspects of it. What's next? Let's see if I can find some. All right, here's some red lentils. These are split lentils. They're not actually whole, so they actually cook a lot faster. They're really small and they're kind of sliced little wafers. So I'm going to put them in later because they cook so fast that I'll put them in later with the vegetables. Like I'm going to put some peas in there. So I'm going to wait until it's like 2 hours before the end before I put them in. And this cook, I usually cook on high. I don't know, they say usually you should cook on high for like the first hour and then you should turn it down. But I just leave it on high. And it gets to the point where it's like boiling. And then it'll take about 6.5 hours. When you go kind of play with that chunk of meat, if it falls apart, it's like that's a good thing. But if it falls apart easily, that's where you want to be. If it falls apart easily, then it's done. The reason I cook it faster is usually because I don't start it right in the morning like I'm supposed to. Alright, here's another kind of lentils. This is called green lentils, or just this is what most people consider for basic lentils. And they're organic, they're cheap, and they keep well. They're a good source of protein, they're not too high in carbs. They don't taste too bad, but they don't taste too good either. But I don't plan on tasting these. I'm going to be putting so much like flavoring in there, I'm not going to taste anything but that. Cumin and whatnot. Make it rain for beef eating. But seriously, guys, if I don't have any Azuki beans, I screwed this up. I screwed myself by doing this. I just put lentils in my beans jug, and now I'm wondering if I have any more beans. I mean, here's my other beans jug, totally empty. So I might be in trouble here. Alright, here's something else I could put in there. This is a quinoa, triple color quinoa. It's organic. This stuff's not very cheap. This used to be a rice jug. It's not very cheap, and it is a little higher in carbs, and it cooks really fast. You can see how small it is. This will thicken up the stew a little bit. And I'll definitely put some of that in, but same thing as the split lentils, I'm not going to put them in right now. I'll wait till a little later on that one. The reason I have these in these weird jugs is because I buy them in bulk. And so I use jugs like this because they're actually they're pretty much airtight, and they can keep humidity from getting to your stuff. So, you know, as opposed to maybe like this type of container, honestly is probably not super airtight. It's good enough, but it's not as good as something like this. And this one is probably better than this as well. So if you can get an airtight jug to protect your stuff from getting humidity, that would be a great idea. Alright, so I have some split peas. Those would probably be good to put in there if I can't come up with the beans. Sorry if I'm missing any comments and stuff, guys. I'm like, my phone is over here and all my ingredients are over here. So let me see if I can move it. I can see better. There we go. Alright, now we're going to check the next shelf, see if there's any beans in here. Alright, so here's how I'm going to thicken it up. Just coconut flour. If you look at like what coconut flour is, it doesn't have carbohydrates much compared to regular flour. And what it has instead is a ton of fiber. So it doesn't really have net carbs. Net carbs are like everything but the fiber. And that's what affects your blood sugar. The fiber is considered, in reasonable amounts, considered to be healthy. In large amounts, maybe not. Maybe there's an argument against fiber. But you got 4 grams of protein, and you have 2 grams of fat, and you have, I think, 3 grams of net carbs. So it's almost like inconsequential. You can put a lot of this in if you want to. So I'm just going to use that to thicken up. If I put too much water in, which you won't really know if you put too much water in until it cooks for a while, because it needs to absorb some of that water. All right, let's keep digging. So I got some rice. I have a bunch of different kinds of rice. This is Canadian wild rice, and this stuff is really expensive, and it's got kind of a weird texture, but it is a little high in carbs. And rice in general is kind of high in carbs, so I generally don't even use any rice at all. But if you're going to use rice, I guess this would be probably a better kind to use because it's whole grain rice. So add some oats instead of flour. Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to add oats, I would recommend oat bran, and I would recommend adding it later on in this. You wouldn't want to put it like too early in your cooking process, I guess. But I'm a big fan of oat bran because it's lower in carbs, higher in protein, higher in fiber. So here's some pink Madagascar rice. It's organic. It's a little more expensive than normal, but I'll put a little bit of that in for sure. I just like it because it has more color. I tend to think if it's got more color, it's got more antioxidants and that sort of thing. And because it's whole grain rice, it'll cook a lot slower. So I just did like 2 kind of handful things there. What's up, Jack? Jack. I don't think I can get Jack in the frame. He doesn't normally jump up on a counter. He's a pretty good boy. He's going to want some meat, so you might want to avert your eyes because I have a feeling that he's going to require some meat. Let's see if we can get him on here. All right, you ready for this, Jack? Turns out that we thought this was a Pikachu, but actually it's a carnivore. I don't think Pikachus are really carnivorous, but let's see if this one is. What do you think, Jack? You want meat or do you not like meat?
Do you see the Pikachu watching your broadcast right now?
Is there?
Yeah, Trist.
Oh no, he doesn't want it. He's not a carnivore.
Oh, yeah. Oh no, Trist. Wait, you don't follow Trist, so you might still be.
I don't follow Trist?
I don't know, do you? Trist! Yeah, no, he's here. He said, yo, Miss T, I didn't know you did broadcasts.
What's up?
He said that earlier.
Spain? Cool.
That's Maria.
Maria. Cephalosporina 2. 3 and 2.
Yeah.
Alright guys, this is a sad day where we have some wasted meat. He's licking the juice, but not the meat. Maybe we can talk him into it. Come on, Jack. You want some? So babe, I don't have Azuki beans. I think I might have screwed up and used them. Yeah, so that's rough.
Should we put them on the list?
Yes, good call. Alright, if he comes back to the meat, I'll put the camera back on him.
He's definitely more popular than both of us.
He's very popular, very handsome. Alright.
Trist said, I just discovered you because Nick shared. First time watching.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for coming in. We do cooking scopes, philosophy scopes.
Maria wants to know where
we're
you're from.
We're in upstate New York. Both of us grew up here in upstate New York, but I think I'm like 2 or 3 generations from Europe. My great-grandparents came over from Ireland and Poland. Let's put it back on him for a minute. So handsome. Everybody thinks their kid is the best looking. Well, come on, Jack, eat some meat. Go ahead. You know what's kind of cool is that my cat doesn't really hunt. He might play with an animal if he's, inclined to, but he's not a hunting cat, which is kind of cool because I feel bad if your cat is running around killing all the creatures for no reason. You know what I mean? Put some flour in. Measuring very carefully here, as you can see. 2 half-assed handfuls, maybe a little more. Okay, good. He's going for the meat, guys. You still want to do it on camera. Good boy, Jake. Son of me, I think you're right. Meat is not good. Son's still here. Alright, what else do we have that's interesting to show you? We got a couple other things that are interesting ingredients. Alright, this is, what does it say? Barley oats. It's kind of hard to see, but these are still very high in carbs, but as far as carbs go, they're some of the less offenders. Well, it's already cooking, but you can continue adding ingredients as it goes. I have this thing on high, and when I basically boiled the water ahead of time on my induction cooker, so it's already cooking. Half-assed handfuls in the Defendula cookbook, exactly. That's kind of like if you have big hands, you don't want to have like a giant handful. You want to have a half-assed handful. I don't even really have that big a hand, but all right, what else do we got? This is kind of cool. This is groats, which is basically oats, whole grain oats. They cook more slowly, but they are still high in carbs, but they're higher in protein and fiber and stuff like that. So they're organic, they're cheap, they taste good. Groats. And mung beans. They are relatively, this is $2.90 a pound, so that's not bad. They're organic. Just another kind of beans. They taste okay. They may not be quite as good as the Adzuki beans, but they're okay. We'll put a little bit of these in there. So all the stuff that needs to be cooking for 6 or 8 hours or whatever it is in there and it's cooking. Jack is walking across the computer right now. There you go. Mung beans. Good boy, Jack. You gonna help us cook? Hey, babe. Okay. Taylor's my tech support when she's around. What's up, Jack? Do you guys remember did I put the lentils in, the green ones? I don't think I did. I'm gonna put some more in there. Pretty sure I forgot. All right. 3 half-assed handfuls of lentils. I already put the beluga ones in there. I think I put the French ones in there. Now I got the green ones. What else? Let's see. I think we're good for now. So now I need to figure out how I'm going to make up for the lack of. I have tons of green, tons of beluga. Uh-oh. Jack is seriously sitting on the laptop right now. Jack, that is not going to be good. There we go. Good boy. Let's sit over there. So he knows something's going on. He knows we're filming. No, don't stand on the laptop. Uh-oh. And he walked through a pile of stevia. That he's going to regret. That stuff is so sweet. Oh, crap. Let's do it again. This is like having kids. Alright, it's cooking. We're off to, now I gotta wait about 6 to 6.5 hours, so it's 5:45, so, uh-oh, how's that math go? 6 hours makes it 11:45, so it'll be 12:15. That sounds ridiculous to have your stew done by midnight, guys, but that's cool in this household. You can get away with stuff like that. And it'll be good to eat tonight, and then it'll be good to eat all night, and then tomorrow. I'll probably just leave this on high until it's done. I'll put it on low for the evening, keep warm overnight, and then I might crank it back up tomorrow just for a little while, and then eat it, and then put it back on warm, that kind of thing. So the idea is to kind of like keep it warm for eating, and then you're not supposed to do this. You're supposed to like cook it and be done. But I never pay attention to those rules. Because I know that people make like endless stew, like when they're camping and stuff like that, it'll just keep on adding stuff to it and keep on making more stew. You can do that, but it's probably not recommended medically. So I like to crank it up, get it nice and hot every once in a while, just to make sure you don't have any bacteria growing in there that's getting out of control. And this thing does get pretty hot to the point where it's like boiling a little bit. Dinner is regularly at midnight. Yeah, I hear that. It works for me. And like I said, I usually, even if I did wake up early, I still wouldn't get this started right in the beginning of the day. Hey, what's going on? Didn't see you in there, Francois. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a long scope because I forgot my Adzuki beans, and now I'm like distressed. I need to figure out a solution. Let's see, it's 5:47 p.m. I could probably run to the store and go get some. It might be worth doing. What do you guys think? Because of your work schedule? Yeah, I wish I could say that was my excuse. It's more because I make my own schedule, and I default to like the slacker hours, you know? It's like, I wake up at like sometime between 11 a.m. and like 3 p.m. a lot of times. But then I go crazy and I start waking up at like 5 a.m. and going to bed at 7 p.m. and weird stuff like that. So, really, it's cutting out? That's interesting. We're broadcasting from OBS. It's on Wi-Fi. I wonder if it has anything to do with my computer, because maybe my computer needs to be rebooted or something like that. But I'm also broadcasting from an Android phone, and that might be a problem. It's fine on your end? Gotcha. So maybe it's just with some people. But I am broadcasting from a S6. And because my iPhone 5 is no good right now, for some reason it just decided to die. And I can't just broadcast from my phone alone because I get that skipping problem. You're on 4G T-Mobile? Nice. Yeah, this thing shouldn't take a lot of download bandwidth, you know, because it's relatively. I did like a lower resolution. I did like it's like less than 720p. It's like a 540. So I think it's like 960 by 540, and we did like 800 kilobits. So it should be pretty easy for uploading live and downloading smoothly. That's the plan. But it still should look, at least, we'll have to see. I'm going to have to watch it over and see how it looks at this resolution. But this is the Logitech C930 camera. We just got it. It's a widescreen, or it's like a wider angle camera. And it's supposed to be, it's relatively cheap. I think I got it on eBay for like 45 bucks. And you could probably turn right around and sell it on eBay for 45 bucks again, used. You know, I bought it used. I always buy everything used. All right, let's put this on. And I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to the store and get some beans and do this the right way, because that's kind of, that's just what I'm used to. So before I go, though, I want to show you guys some of the spices that I use. And I will go crazy with some of these spices. Organic turmeric. I'll definitely put a lot of that in there. It's an antioxidant. Looking at used laptops? Cool. This laptop I'm using right now is it's a Sony Vaio from 2012. It's got an i7. It's got a way outdated graphics card. It's a GT 520. So it's like, even if it, in its day, it probably wasn't a crazy gaming laptop. But it's got 8 gigs of RAM. And I do have an SSD hard drive in this. So I put that in myself. And it's got a second hard drive, a 2 terabyte, like stashed in where the CD drive is. So I'm trying to think what other specs would matter. But it's more than enough to run OBS, as far as I can tell. Now Taylor, she went and kind of wanted to get more modern. She got herself an Asus ROG off of eBay for like 770 bucks. It was about half price compared to brand new. It's got a GTX 970. Oh yeah, I said the numbers wrong. Mine has a 520M, and hers has a 970M, or yeah, 970M. So we haven't figured out what to do about that. I can't really talk about my name because for Taylor's and my own security reasons, we talk about wealth, we show gold and stuff. And Taylor has like she's a young, smaller female. She likes to go out to the parks and stuff. So because we're trying to worry about our own privacy and stuff, you can find somebody's location by their name and that kind of thing. So we're like, okay, so what name should we can't use the name. What do we do? You know. And I haven't figured that out, what to do. So she decided to call me Mr. Perfect, which is a big difficulty to live up to because I'm far from perfect, but that's the kind of wife she is. She's a super loving, nice wife. Oh yeah, look at that. I have the overhead lighting. It's like horrible. I just noticed that. It makes you look like, if you have light coming from down here or from up here, it makes you look like a ghoul. So that's a big no-no for broadcasting. I forgot about that. But yeah, so that's one of the reasons why we don't do that. We haven't figured it out, so we just go by Mr. P. And until we figure out, I was thinking maybe something like Ezekiel or Ebenezer, but she said that wasn't good. Yeah, you know how it goes. Security and privacy is like a form of wealth in these days of internet. You know, you can find out so much about somebody if you're willing to pay. I think you can find out somebody from their license plate, if I'm not mistaken. You can pay, go to a paid site and get their address that vehicle is registered to, stuff like that. There's all kinds. So you see people will cover their plates sometimes when they're selling things, and I'm not an expert on security or anything, but it's I know some people who have talked about that they made an experiment where they wanted to go through this modern day life as private as possible, and they would try to like not have credit cards and just pay with cash and do all this and not have bank accounts, and it is so difficult. It's like really hard to protect your privacy, especially from advertisers, junk mail. Anytime you sign up, you're going to be signing up for some junk mail coming to your house, and just there's nothing you can do to stop it. Stevenson, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for there's certain things that make things difficult. Let's say you own a property. If you own a property, your name is going to be attached to that property unless you run it through an LLC or some kind of a company, or even then it might still have your name attached to it. So if you live in a property that you own, your name is your address. That's another concern for people that are worried about their security and their privacy and that sort of thing. Celebrities, obviously, stuff like that, they have that issue. We're not. I don't consider myself a celebrity, and certainly I don't know if she does, but she's more a celebrity than I am, and I'm not worried about that kind of thing. But I do worry about her. I like to keep her as safe as possible, that sort of thing. So those are things that we always want to keep in mind and consider, because I'd like to see her go on to have a big career in that kind of thing. Going online, I want her to be like the next Tai Lopez. Salzburg, Austria, nice. Yeah, your neighbors knew the name before you even got there. I believe it, man. Your income taxes online, yeah. I mean, a lot of it here in New York State, all the state employees are online with their salaries. So you can actually see what your coworkers make, what your boss makes, what your boss's boss makes, that kind of thing. And when it's a government thing, I guess that's kind of fair, fair play. Yeah, isn't it? I really think that they should change that by having people's names and addresses available when you own a property. That's crazy to me. I can't believe they do that in this digital age. It probably wasn't a big deal in the age of, flipping through files to find paperwork. Now you can just fire it up with Google in a few minutes. Man, it's cold. I gotta brush my car off, and it's like 10 degrees out. All this for beans. I really can't believe I did that. Because I must have like stocked up on everything and thought that I had a whole nother thing of beans. Fooled myself. What else did I gotta put in here? I think I'll put a little bit of split peas in there. They do take a long time to cook. I washed my hands before I did this, by the way. My dad built the yellow wall, seen the 62 movie Sound of Music. Nice. That is a pretty famous one. Oh yeah, I got distracted about the spices, right? So I'm going to do a lot of organic turmeric. $20 a pound for that. If you can buy it in packages. Organic cumin. Love this stuff. Good antioxidant. Tastes good. Adds flavor. Gonna do garlic powder for sure. I have pink salt. Probably can't tell that it's pink on this camera or not, but that's finely ground pink salt, Himalayan salt. I'm going to use that sparingly, and Taylor can add some to her. This is a black pepper. It's Telecherry organic black pepper that we freshly ground. I have Telecherry peppercorns that I grind up. I do a little bit of kelp powder, which is just seaweed dried and ground up. And I'll probably do some onion powder, and what else? That's pretty much it. And then after the fact, we'll add more. To make it really spicy and flavorful, add some more. Like as you put your own in the bowl, you can kind of go by taste. If it tastes a little bland as it's been cooking for a while, then I'll add more salt and pepper just to make sure it's got some good flavor going on. It's hot already. Yeah, for sure I will, Steve. And I like to do broadcasts about politics, philosophy, health and nutrition, stuff like that. I love to hear you guys' thoughts. You know, I like to talk about religion. I just like thinking and discussing things. Taylor and I do it all the time. You know, we read books, we talk about the ideas in the books, and little by little, we put together like what we think is a good pile of knowledge, and we like to just run that past all of you guys and see what you think about it. And you know, little by little, we build a better and better understanding of what it is that we should do, what it is that we can do, and that sort of thing, just in general in life. So I like to do all that kind of stuff, and I get so many ideas from just like I've done collaboration scopes with Taylor's audience, and you guys send tons of ideas our way, things we haven't heard about, bring things to our attention, because nobody can be up on everything, so you really got to put your heads together. Could you believe about that sugar and meats? Oh, hey, how you doing, Elise? Yeah, I did some research on that, and oh man, that stuff sounds like a disaster. First of all, the glycemic index we're talking about the thing called trehalose. I don't know if I pronounced that right. It's trehalose. And it's a type of sugar replacement that's made out of GMO cornstarch that's been fermented into a disaccharide, which is two glucose molecules. Two glucose molecules attached. So as opposed to normal table sugar, which would be sucrose, when it breaks down into fructose and glucose, this stuff breaks down into glucose and glucose. So the glycemic index is about the same. So the way that it affects your blood sugar and your insulin level is the same. And the number is 78 that I saw on the glycemic index. But they're saying it's only half as sweet. Brainstorming, yeah, exactly. I find that to be a lot of fun. Philosophical brainstorming. So this stuff is half as sweet, and they recommend you use it at 2-to-1 replacement for sugar. That means you break my cardinal nutritional rule, which is jack up the simple carbs. That's their solution. They're saying, hey, don't eat sugar because sugar is so bad. Eat twice as much simple carbs. That'll be a great solution. So that right there is a terrible starting point. Here's another problem with it. It costs 25 times more than sugar. Well, that's a problem. Even though they've gotten it at $25 a pound, or actually I think it's like $12 a pound you can get trehalose for, you can get sugar for 50 cents a pound, maybe less. So that's another horrible thing about it. It's being made from GMO cornstarch. That's probably not great. It's probably going to have some contaminants in it from that, potentially glyphosate or God knows what other kinds of pesticides and crap. It's obviously like hyper processed, so it's not going to have any like vitamins and nutrition that normally sugar would have. If you actually make real sugar by evaporating cane juice, there's actually some nutrition in there. Like for example, in blackstrap molasses, that's something that they took away. That's nutritionally powerful. They took it out of high processed sugar. No, you're good, man. I appreciate the comments because without them, I usually I'll end the broadcast usually if I don't get some comments coming in because I feel weird. So I appreciate the comments. And so, okay, the final thing that's wrong with trehalose is that they claim that it doesn't affect your insulin, that it's like some kind of fancy, it's better for your body because it doesn't have fructose. And they're saying that fructose, it protects if you eat fructose, that's bad for your liver. But you eat trehalose instead of sucrose, you're going to not have any fructose. Therefore, your liver is going to be all good. And that's insane because they're saying you should eat twice as many simple carbs to get that same amount of sweetness in your recipe. And thanks, Lisa, I appreciate it. And so, what was the final thing? There was one more thing about the trehalose that was just the final thing that we did. Oh yeah. So it feeds the C. diff bacteria. According to some research, they're saying that obviously we're not talking about artificial sweetener where you put a tiny pinch in. We're talking about like you're going to be putting in tablespoons and tablespoons of pure carbohydrate. There's a lot of it. So if you eat something that used trehalose as a sugar replacement, you're eating a ton of it. So it is going to digest in your digestive system by the bacteria that's in there. And what they're saying is that for some reason, C. difficile bacteria can feed on trehalose
almost better than anything else. It gives it like some kind of advantage so that the C. diff can take over. And that's a disaster. Now, first of all, when you're eating a lot of sugar, it screws up your digestive bacteria in the first place. But apparently eating tree halos does something specifically really dangerous by making the C. diff produce more toxins. And the toxins that come from the C. diff destroys the intestinal lining. And believe me, we have enough people having problems with digestion. We don't need another problem exacerbating it. And I believe that Lise pointed that out in saying that she had something related to C. diff. I think is like a hospital-acquired infection, but maybe they're feeding you, stuff in the hospital with the tree halos and thinking that it's extra healthy. So this stuff is like a kind of a train wreck, kind of a dumpster fire in every way possible. And this is brand new. We didn't even know about the C. diff thing. This news just came out like a week ago, and it was her that brought it to my attention, which I appreciate, because it's right up the alley of what I'm trying to talk about in terms of nutrition. I'm trying to tell people not to eat simple carbs. That includes sugar and flour, which means bread, which is, it's kind of like telling people to stop living. It's hard. Yeah, a lot of people couldn't even imagine life without bread, but I couldn't imagine life without cigarettes before I quit. It turned out to be a good thing that I quit cigarettes, and I'm pretty sure we need to quit. In general, we need to quit bread and sugar, unless you're one of those rare people who can just have a tiny little bit of a cookie. Your roommate in the hospital? That's a good question. I don't know how. I would almost imagine that C. diff is probably already in us all the time, and that if your immune system is suppressed from taking steroid medications, which steroid medications are commonly prescribed for autoimmune dysfunction. So people who have digestive problems, they might take some steroids because they have autoimmune disease. Getting very choppy for me now. To catch anything saying. Oh, sorry to hear that, man. We'll have to work on that, man. Maybe I'll experiment with broadcasting from an iPhone and see if that changes it. Or maybe a different bit rate or something. What's going on? So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that C. diff is already in us. And it's just being fed by this tree halo stuff. And at the same time, your immune system is being suppressed or taking antibiotics, might be throwing stuff off. Thanks, Francois. And that, who knows? I honestly don't know. But I don't know if it's just, because really, if you're in the hospital, in order to acquire intestinal bacteria, you would have to ingest it, I would assume. Cool, good. Thanks, Lise. And if that's the case, it's hard to imagine how you would ingest an infectious dose, orally, in the hospital. I don't know how that's happening. I guess it could. Maybe the gloves, they're touching one thing and touch the other. I'm not sure. But I'm most worried about in hospitals is airborne disease, airborne, things that are truly airborne, where you could sneeze and spread the disease, that kind of thing. And what we're talking about is cold and flu. In order to get most kinds of disease, you actually have to physically get contact with it and get into a cut on your hand or get into a mucous membrane or something like that. But the one that you actually that you can actually breathe in, now that's tough. That would be like influenza. And back in the day, believe it or not, smallpox was truly airborne. But most diseases are not. Like Ebola, the stomach bug. The stomach bug is kind of airborne, that's for sure. If you're near somebody who's getting violently ill or something, you could breathe it in. It can get in your ears, eyes, nose, mouth, any opening, any mucous membrane. You can develop an infection, especially from virus particles. Virus particles like 1 to 10 is enough to cause an active infection in some viruses. But bacteria is a different story. You kind of almost have to get a significant dose of a bacteria to get that infection, really to take hold. It's more easily filtered out by masks. It's more easily killed by chemicals in general. So bacteria, it shouldn't be such a big problem, but it has become a problem with MRSA and stuff like that. Which to me that seems ridiculous. We should be able to beat something like that. But MRSA has become a problem too. So I don't honestly know though. I don't know what's really the means. What's the vector? How are people getting these germs in the hospital? I'm not sure. I'll have to do some research on that. But yeah, it is a scary thought going to the hospital thinking that you might catch something while you're there that you didn't have in the first place. And that makes sense, right? You put a lot of sick people together and things are going to happen. Just on average, by the numbers, it's bound to happen. So I would say that, they say that eating sugar suppresses your immune system. So eating sugar, taking steroids, being stressed out, being sick, all those things actually can suppress your immune system. Your immune system is busy fighting something else, that kind of stuff. And all those things can lead to infectious disease, and maybe even suppressing your immune system could lead to other kinds of disease like cancer and autoimmune dysfunction in general. So there's a lot of reasons you don't want that to happen. You want your immune system functioning properly. So keep that in mind whenever a doctor prescribes steroids to you, that is immune suppressing in general. That's an immune suppressing treatment. Oops, I missed it. So let's see if in the next comment that comes up, I'll try to jump back over and grab it. The beef stew is cooking. I would say one thing about this beef stew, guys, is if you're not used to eating a lot of beans and lentils, you could have a digestive surprise. It's basically what happens is that there's a sugar in the beans. Let's see. You need to have used antibiotics a lot. Oh, okay. So the antibiotics is part of the problem that's making people susceptible to C. diff. That's interesting. If there's no beef stew, colon security. There is a stew. It's cooking. And it's going to be good. But yeah, guys, when you eat beans, you've heard of, Beano and all that. Really the reason for that is because of oligosaccharides. Oligosaccharides is a kind of sugar that when you eat a bean, it breaks down. And one of the sugars from beans is oligosaccharides, which don't digest in your small intestine for whatever reason. It digests in your large intestine. So it's actually associated with health benefits in terms of like reducing colon cancer and stuff, but it causes flatulence. So that's why people take Beano, because Beano is an enzyme that allows you to digest the oligosaccharides that are in beans. So if you have to sleep in a bedroom with a few other people at night or something, you might want to take some Beano. I don't know. That's something might be worthwhile looking into if you're going to eat some kind of a stew like this. Because as you guys noticed, I didn't put any potatoes in there. I'm trying to do trying to use like a lower carb approach to the whole entire thing. And so therefore you end up with a lot of beans and lentils. How else are you going to get your protein in there, especially if you're doing it vegetarian? So that's something I should do some research on that to find out if there's like some kind of natural form of Beano or something. But if you have, it's the summertime, you got the windows open and stuff, and you don't care, you can do whatever. But
what about silicon?
What is it?
Silicon?
Oh yeah, there's a thing like that. Babies, when they get gas bubbles, they get painful gas, and they would take I think it's called like silamethicone or something, simethicone. That's baby gas relief. You can get it at Walmart for like $10. But what that does, it lubricates the digestive system. It doesn't actually help you. It's not an enzyme like Beano. So if you have painful, like where you got to burp and you can't, and it hurts, you can try simethicone. And just mix it in some water. It's like make it look a little milky. You drink that, and then maybe it'll help you get that burp out. And do some yoga. Taylor can show you the special poses. Yeah, if you get gas pains, try simethicone. It's as far from my own research, it's not like a super toxic thing. Although there are super toxic things that are marketed for babies, like baby flavored, baby fluoride, extra super fluoridated water for babies. But now they also have non-fluoridated water for babies. This is non-fluoridated water. This is what we cook with here today. I use reverse osmosis water. Passing gas could warm your home. Yeah, especially if you light it on fire.
I wanted to warn you that I'm going to do a test of Good Life while you're alive.
Yeah, you can. I think I'm going to run to the store to get some beans because I think I can get them at Green Grocery real quick. What day is this, Saturday?
Yes.
They're probably closed, aren't they?
What time is it? 6 o'clock.
Yeah. I think they close at 6.
Oh.
I'm not sure. Well, if you want to do it real quick, fine. Yeah, go ahead. I'll hang out here for a minute, then I'm going to end it.
You don't have to test it. It's fine. I just wanted to give you a warning that I'm going live so that if something weird happens, I'll know that it's my fault.
A few people said that it was skipping for them.
Really?
But a lot of people also said that at the same time it wasn't skipping for them.
Are you dropping any frames?
No.
It'll say here on the bottom.
Aldi's open until 8?
Nope.
Do you think they have organic beans? I could get to an Aldi up nearby here.
You haven't dropped any frames.
They have dry beans? Oh, maybe I should check them out. Not dropping frames?
Nope, none.
Awesome. Cool. Lee says hi, Taylor.
Hi, ladies.
She said hi. Taylor is, she seems to be a fan of the beef stew. She'll eat a couple bowls. It's so good that it makes you want to eat too many, though, you know? I'll have like one bowl, and I have 2 or 3, and I want to keep going, but I know it's not a good idea. you gotta pace yourself. And there probably is enough carbs in here to give you somewhat of a sugar response if you do it. So that's another reason why I try not to eat too much all at once, even though it's really tasty. All right, guys, I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to run out to the store and get that. And you're smart as me. I actually don't think I'm very smart, but I think that the secret to like critical thinking is encouragement from people around you. Like, you know how when people ask questions and then someone tries to make them feel dumb? That is exactly, diced tomatoes with the amount of sugar is crazy. Yeah, true. It does have a lot of sugar. Same thing with, even if you get like a really good tomato sauce, even the ones that don't have sugar added, it's just, there's a lot of fructose in tomatoes, there's no doubt. You do have to pace yourself with it. But yeah, I feel like people are, well, I say, that's right, I say I'm not smart, that's true. I was definitely not at the top of my class. I have a hard time like with certain intelligence related activities. Like when I was a kid, I had a really hard time remembering left from right, stuff like that. I can't think deep math. You know how like people that are really good at mathematics can like think like 4 levels down just in their head, like doing math and stuff? I can't do that. Thank you. Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope I would never want to come across as anything but humble, for sure. But there's times when you have an opinion that you really believe in and you start going on. I gotta start going on it, and I suddenly feel like I'm preaching and stuff like that. It happens, but I'm here to be a bad Hindu and watch you cook beef. So no, there's no beef in here. I swear. I'm just kidding. But you know, one thing I will say about eating meat is that I like to do it very, very sparingly and really appreciate it because it's really it's a nice boost to your health. You'll feel it if you haven't eaten meat in a while. You know, we don't do like an everyday meat like kind of thing, like chicken nuggets at McDonald's, that kind of thing. I eat meat like once a week or less, and I eat it sparingly, and I'll try to really appreciate it and not waste it. Like I believe my cat will come back and eat that a little bit, but you know, I like to treat meat that way. I wouldn't want to completely cut it out of my diet. Although if you have it for religious reasons, I completely understand that choice. Yeah, right. Some people can do math in their head, and it's just crazy how they do that. I can't do that. I can't think. I can't think in that way. But I'm okay with that. I wouldn't want to change the way that my brain is set up. I set it up to try to be able to figure things out without having to go too crazy. Overeating is not good. I go to all-eat buffet. Yeah, I hear you, man. Overeating has got multiple problems. It's better off to eat small meals through the day, that sort of thing. But you know, one of my favorite thinkers is his name is Michael Maloney, and he was one of the Rich Dad Poor Dad advisors. He helped him write the book. Helped Robert Kiyosaki write his book about precious metals. And he grew up dyslexic, and everybody thought he was stupid. He thought he was stupid. His teachers thought he was stupid, but he wasn't stupid. He just thought differently than other people. So because he couldn't really read, he had to learn how to sort of read between the lines and make things as simple as possible. Yeah, she is going to be going live, I think, to do a little test. She wants to know what it's going to be like if we're both live at the same time. Is it still going to work or not? But so Mike Maloney, eventually he got audiobooks as he got older, and he realized he wasn't stupid. But because he had been treated stupid, as if his brain wasn't working the whole time, he had to learn to think simply. Make everything extremely simple, and try to understand the truth underneath all the BS. You know what I mean? And because of that, he can sort of he can look at a topic and just see right through it and see to the bottom line. She's on right now. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, you're welcome to philosophize here, philosophize there. So Mike Maloney kind of taught me that, like, if you have a brain disadvantage of some kind, you can actually turn it to your advantage. And he certainly has done that. He's a very wealthy guy now. Yeah, exactly. If we were all exactly the same, that wouldn't be so great. But anyways, my brain is kind of like that too. I need to be able to see through things. My weakness is my memory. A lot of times I can't remember things, so I have to kind of take the main idea and remember the main idea instead. for some reason, I think I did. I played too many video games or something as a kid. I don't know. I filled my brain up with other stuff, and now I can't remember things very well. I've been able to remember things better now that I changed my diet. That's for sure. I used to eat a lot. I had the worst diet ever for a long time. Doritos and ice cream sandwiches was my thing. French toast and pancakes. No vegetables. Yeah, true. We have about 5 megabits upload speed. Thanks, Lise. Yeah, and somebody said it's not that we forget; it's that we never even tried to remember. In some cases that may be the case in some people's situations, and I have that problem too. Like if you don't actually make the effort to try to memorize something, and then you can't recall it, it's no surprise. But I do have that problem, so I've tried to learn how to just take away the main idea of things. And that seems to be a good approach for me, for my way of doing things. And I like to simplify the world into black and white. And a lot of people say not to do that, but it's almost like you could say like prejudice, for example. Prejudice is supposed to be a bad thing, but in practice, it makes sense. As long as you're not discrimination, for example. There's a difference between a discrimination and racism. Racism says that you believe one race is superior to another. Well, I do believe that races are different from each other. I wouldn't presume to say which one is more superior than the other. It depends on the situation, right? If the whole world turned into a desert, you wouldn't want to be Eskimos, right? Yeah, to take away the executive summary, the cliff notes, there's so much value in that. And then if you find a topic you want to get really detailed on or you don't understand, then you can drill down into it, that sort of thing. It's running smoothly? Cool. Must have been just a little glitch there. I'm wretched with names. Yeah, totally. I totally get that. I have the same kind of problem. A lot of people do. And depending on the situation, it may not be a great idea to even worry about that when you're, to worry about a person's name until you know, okay, I need to know this person's name, and you make a space for it. Until then, I still know who it is. I just don't. I might not necessarily know their name, but I know who they are and what they're about. And I think that's more important for starters. The worst thing is if you get the wrong name in your head, and then you can't get rid of it, and you keep calling them the wrong name. That's probably the worst thing. But so yeah, when it comes to thinking and critical thought, I like to think that's a good way to approach things. And when you're in a world that's sort of discouraging you from thinking critically, you have to be almost brave or courageous to do it, even though they're trying to discourage you from doing it. That's part of the reason why people are so up in arms about Common Core. Because I think Common Core kind of discourages individuality to some extent. It says either you know this and you're good, or you don't know it and you're bad. Well, I think that's probably not a good approach. One size fits all does not work well, in my opinion. And maybe it's almost like they're trying to train worker bees or something. And those worker bees are basically going to be taken advantage of if they can't think critically. And for those few who can think critically, the avatar you see is a pic of what I look like. I'm 64. Yep. I have my cat. And so, yeah, I think Common Core is probably a good example of that, where people are going for the one-size-fits-all worker bee training program. Not everybody can be a critical thinker. Some people really aren't down with that. They prefer things that are more scheduled and structured and that sort of thing, and that's cool. But for the people who are meant to be breaking trail and going off into new directions and leading and stuff like that, it's a very unfortunate thing. They have to break free of. So if you're one of those people who deep inside you know that you've got something you need to use your brain for something, you got an idea that's really important, you just have to basically break ranks and go off in your own way and explore that. Thanks, Steve. And I think also another thing is, whatever it is that you're exploring, you need to do it with reason. I mean, that's for me. I shouldn't say that, but for me, it's reason. I have to have reason as a guiding force. When I start to get off the beaten path, I'm saying, all right, I'm going to be open-minded, but I want to keep reason in mind here, because reason is power. It really is powerful. You'll be ridiculed. Yeah, exactly. You will. You have to be. Peter Schiff said you have to be willing to be wrong, quote unquote. He's talking about wrong from their opinion. You have to be willing to stand there and be I'm the wrong guy over here. This is the guy who's wrong. Let's all talk and laugh at him. If you're willing to withstand that, you could change the world, because a lot of ideas that are really important, that, you know, even in science and things, came from that. It came from, like for example, tectonic plate movement. That guy was ridiculed out of his profession. Then they were like, oh wait, he's turned out that he was right. And it was a simple thing you could see on the map. You could see how the continents fit together and that sort of thing. So it wasn't that hard to go down that trail and say, wait a minute, maybe there's a mechanism that explains this. You would have to use reason to come to that conclusion. And eventually other scientists finally realized, they saw the light and said, oops, yeah, there's a lot of evidence that supports tectonic plate movement, and our bad. It happens. And we thought we thought the Earth was the center of the universe. Reason would probably indicate that that's the heliocentric model is also, it's primitive to think that you're the center of everything, right? Everything revolves around you. Cervidogenic, same as what you had? I don't think so. I have to look that up though. Cervicogenic, because there is definitely a mechanism deep down in the center of your brain that can cause that. That's not related to the actual inner ear. Mine was definitely related to the inner ear because it was screeching. That was part of it. I knew I was having hearing problems as well. They tried erasing Nassim Haramein. I'll have to look that one up. I'm not sure. That's not the black crow, or what is it? The black swan guy, or is that a different guy? Critical thinking. Yeah, sometimes it takes some bravery to go against the norms, especially if there's like a cultural taboo that's getting in the way. Like, let's say you're a homosexual community. There's a cultural taboo that came from religious traditions, and basically what they were doing, they weren't saying like, oh no, we never do homosexual stuff. They were saying like, basically homosexual stuff is bad in God's eyes, but yet they would still do it. They would just do it secretly, you know? I mean, as far as I know, it's like 10% of people are somewhat, mostly homosexual. The guy that came up with the unified field theory, his site, Project Resonance. Interesting. Yeah, I'd like to look into that more. I'm interested in physics, and I studied relativity, and it's very interesting. I love Albert Einstein as a thinker. He's definitely a boss, and he's a good example of someone that kind of broke trail, and that had to be hard to do. Like you know, a quote that may or may not actually be from Albert Einstein. It says, "When you're a genius, everybody thinks you're crazy," or something like that. Which is pretty well must be how people thought of him in a lot of ways, I can imagine. So he would know. So yeah, your idea could be genius, and yet everyone thinks it's crazy. There's another good quote. I think it might have been from George I don't know if it was George or no, it might have been Mark Twain, but George said something similar, or maybe it was Hemingway. He said, if you find yourself with the majority, you better rethink what you're doing. Form alliance with people in the same field you are in. Yeah, absolutely. In some cases, that is true. You know, two heads are better than one on a project. They can help see the weaknesses in your ideas, or you can help reveal the truth of your ideas, vice versa, whichever way. But yeah, I think it was George Soros that said, you know, the way you make money is by coming up with find a publicly broadly held precept and bet against it. That's wrong. Find one that's wrong and bet against it. Right now we have that in terms of debt. I think that we're betting on debt, and if you bet against it, you'll be rewarded. Stepping on the wrong toes, yeah, that's a big deal. How about the vaccines, right? The CDC recommends 74 doses of vaccine for children by the age of 18 now. The CDC, all those vaccines are patented. They're well, not all of them, but they're patented. They're profitable. Yep, Dive Dominoes. Smart X, they seem like crazy or stupid. Yep. Exactly. And I think that's why you have to be brave, because you look stupid to those people. And it's like, if you have your esteem and everything, you have some support from maybe some close people that believe in you, you can withstand that scrutiny. But yeah, 74 doses of vaccine. Does that sound like a good idea? What is a vaccine? Well, it's a thing that they inject or inhale that irritates your immune system. It was nailed by 2 rounds of MMR. No shit. Yeah, I hear all kinds of stories. You know, and there's also, what about the combination of all these vaccines in addition to all the other problems that we have going on? Like, say, for example, the kid has leaky gut at the same time as he's getting all these vaccines. Well, that means there's undigested proteins getting into the bloodstream, which could cause the body to recognize those and create an allergy. Animosity breeds contempt. We should all work together to find the best solutions. Yeah, I agree. I have animosity towards professionals who are against freedom. Whenever I see something like that, I feel like these people are powerful, intelligent, educated, privileged people, and if they're causing damage, then I have animosity towards them. I'll hold their feet to the fire, not physically. I'm not saying with violence. I'm saying like with a debate. I'd love to debate somebody who thinks that, like somebody that's in a public office that's making policy that's hurting kids, for example. I'd love to debate them and try to discuss these things and say, can we talk reason on this? Now the CDC vaccines are recommendations. What's going on, TCATs? We're kind of talking, and we're talking about stuff that's up your alley. Talking about debt, money, publicly held beliefs that are wrong that you can bet against, stuff like that. You almost have to, right? Because you can't. We may not be able to change the world, but you can try to. If you believe something you know is true, then you can almost like predict the future to some sense and reposition yourself. And by buying cryptocurrencies, maybe not again with a small percentage of your money, maybe you can reposition yourself if there's a problem with the dollar. How many town halls do you attend? Exactly. You know, I think small government is a way more effective than big government. I can go to a town hall meeting and maybe make a difference. I can't make a difference in the New York State Senate or the Congress as much. You know, it's more difficult to do that. I'm afraid to stick my neck out too much locally because of my beliefs are extremely like small government. So if I go out there and put a sign that says like, no school taxes out of control in our area, you know, I do believe that to be true. But I honestly don't want to attract the fire of the people the vast majority of the people who support it or actually are getting paid by it, or they say, oh, you don't love kids? You hate kids? That kind of thing. Yeah, you can change the world one person at a time. You can change the world from home. And that's why I like to do it for myself. Rather than put my neck on the chopping block and get harassed, I'll do my own thing. And I'll teach people as best I can to try to hopefully inspire them to do similar things, but do things at home. Like, for example, the two things I always recommend to people to do is to quit sugar and flour to try to help your health and to get gold. Get out of debt, get some gold. Those are things I recommend to people. Physical gold, you know, actual metal in your hand, or silver. Silver is even better for us that are just beginning. Those two things are what I recommend to people after all my research and all my philosophy that you can do at home to fight against the tide of irresponsibility and political waste that we have going on. And so, you know, just every kind of problem we have in our whole society kind of tracks back to that. Yep, helping yourself helps out. Absolutely. If, say, for example, you're the crazy guy who bought silver and everybody else thinks you're nuts, and then if something does go wrong, you might actually be able to help your family. Where if there's a problem with the dollar, we're completely dependent on the economy, what happens with the economy, what happens with the, you know, international exchange rates or whatever. It's not stuff that you can control. But by betting against debt, you can, to some extent, take some of that power back. In every household, if every household bought gold, then that would actually change the world. But the truth of the matter is, we got to be honest with ourselves, it's not going to happen. 75% of households don't have disposable income. So the 25% that are left, they probably have a positive net worth only while the stock market stays at all-time highs in the real estate market. What happens when they come down? Then what happens to people's net worth? If they go negative, then they might end up selling assets. They'll sell them all at the same time. The asset prices drop like a rock. So the guy who has some wealth that is holding its value, I drank too much soda pop, not good for my health. I have Crohn's disease. Yeah, I hear you. That's for sure, man. You know, Crohn's disease is an immune system, an autoimmune disease in the gut. And one thing that throws your gut off is by putting sugar in there, it makes the flora and fauna change. You can change it back. You might be able to reverse that disease. And the way I'd recommend that is look at simple carbohydrates, that's flour and sugar. Try to sort of, if you're going to like go to war against flour and sugar. That's my recommendation. Whatever it takes in your life to do. In other words, if you wake up one day and you're like, man, today I feel like fighting, you need to get different gut bacteria. Yeah, exactly. And you can change that in a matter of days, actually. But it's an addiction, so it's a lot harder to do than you would think. Yeah, you can. Yeah, they have. You can take a pill of a fecal transplant. But I honestly don't know that that's going to be super necessary. If you change your diet, your gut will change on its own. You got it, man. Yeah, I highly recommend it. Hope if you can do it. I think you'll find that it's an addiction, and when you try to do it, it's going to fight back. Basically, poo water. Yeah, anything with high fructose corn syrup. Yep, high fructose corn syrup is probably the #1 worst simple carbohydrate. Natural sugars have a right spin molecule. I would think you probably would be better off with natural sugars than synthetic. Like organic evaporated cane sugar is a different animal than synthesized, petrochemically fertilized, GMO corn. I think we're down, guys. We went down. It'll be interesting to see if Taylor went down too. Thanks for being here. For those who are watching the replay, wait, I think we're back. Save your sugar for beers. Yeah, corn is the most GMO. Yes, definitely. It's been hard over the years. Yeah, I totally understand that. Like I said, I would say if you had just go to war against it. You know, if you look at it from that perspective, you could say, know your enemy. So if you wake up one day and you're like, man, today's the day I feel like fighting, at least you'd know who to fight. You know, in other words, I can assure you that if you fight against high fructose corn syrup, you'll see an improvement. That much I can say for sure. I personally suspect that it is the best thing you could do is to fight against simple carbs. There's a million different health techniques, but that one is the most important one. Doesn't mean you have to do it first, though. Some people don't feel strong enough to fight against sugar and carbs. It takes wealth, it takes perseverance, it takes willpower. You could say F it and do what you want. Yeah, I mean, that's true too. You know, it's a free world. You should be free to do as you choose. It went in a loop and then it came back and just deal with the pain. Yeah, I do that sometimes, you know. My dad did that. He continued eating junk food and smoking cigarettes and stuff. Even though I think he kind of knew he was having some heart problems and stuff. I could kind of tell. And yeah, he died. He died at 66. You know, I think he died prematurely. He died like an ox. The guy was a monster. He was working every day. He was strong, but his heart had an electrical problem, and that's it. So you could, you know, die prematurely because of stuff like that for sure. And I think he's an example of that. Because if his whole body was still so functional, but one tiny little crossed wire in the heart, which is damaged by, basically, in my opinion, it's damaged by simple carbs, causing inflammation, and that inflammation heals with over time. It keeps on healing and getting damaged over and over again. It just tears it up. Yeah, I don't know. We're definitely having some problems, T-Cats, unfortunately. High blood pressure, yep. So basically, high blood pressure, cholesterol, like high bad cholesterol, arterial damage, they're all actually the same. They're all coming from the same exact thing. I teach my kids how to read labels and ingredients. They told me out of nowhere that there is cornstarch in the milk at school. Holy crow. That's crazy. So yeah, if you think about industrial milk is made from cows that are eating grain. That's the grain is cheap corn generally. It's GMO corn. So they grow the corn with sprayed with chemicals and fertilized with petrochemicals. I do see you, Lise. Welcome back. You're so proud of them? Yeah, they uncovered a nasty little surprise in there. Good for them. So you feed these cows with corn that's GMO and it's dirty and it's petrochemical. It's probably devoid of nutrients, that sort of thing. They have way too many simple carbs themselves. And then we milk them. We maybe even give them some antibiotics in their feed, by the way, because they'll just die if we don't. I don't know how big the time is. Oh, I hope it helps, man. I really do. You know, like I said, my whole life's philosophy has actually traced backwards to that. That actually is the first step for getting into the positive cycle of things, is fighting against sugar. Simple carbs. This is a long story why. The reason is related to your insulin and your blood sugar. So your sugar goes up, and when you eat the simple carbs, your sugar goes up way high. Your insulin comes out and knocks your sugar way down. You go into a crash. Then you're hungry, so you eat more sugar. It goes up. Insulin knocks it down. Do that over and over again. Eventually, you become either insulin sensitive or insulin resistant. And while you're in a high state of sugar, your blood is thick. And when you're in a high state of insulin, you are forcing your body to store fat. Causes like fatty liver disease and that sort of thing. So it also causes just general inflammation in the body, low-grade inflammation, which is what causes damage to arteries and all kinds of crap. It can eventually lead to things like cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and autoimmune disease. Those are the four main causes of death for people in the Western world. So it's all comes from the same thing. Oh, thank you for the awesome looking hand super heart things. I appreciate that. And so that's the mechanism of how that goes down. If you want to learn more about that, check out Dr. Barry Sears. He's the guy that wrote the Zone Diet. He recommends to eat like a balanced carbs, fats, and proteins type of diet. But you can't do that unless you break the carb addiction first, because I can tell you from experience, all I really wanted to eat was carbs. Maybe with a little protein mixed in, but that's about it. The modern Western medical world has demonized fat mistakenly. They're saying that eating cholesterol and saturated fat is causing heart disease, and it's flat out wrong. And there's lots of doctors that'll back that up. Having lots of popsicles, I'm not able to drink. Gotcha. Is the beef kosher? That's a good question. Actually, I don't know. Let's check that out. Popsicles are, they have that nice stimulation because they're cold. If they have a lot of simple sugars in it, I would suggest that they're causing a lot of damage, though. I'd be very wary of that. I wonder if there's a way you can make a healthy popsicle, like maybe coconut water with some stevia or something. I wonder if that's possible. Sweet Tree Farm, grass-fed and grass-finished beef. It doesn't say kosher. That's probably a good thing, right? Isn't kosher? Kosher's bad, right? Thank you. I appreciate that very much so. And like I said, I hope that helps. I hope it helps a lot of people to give it a shot. Now, yeah, am I wrong about the kosher thing, that when you have a kosher animal, it has to have its neck cut or something like that? Is that right? Man, I love animals. I'm like obsessively oversensitive how much I love animals, because I feel like they're so innocent because they just do what they do. Whereas humans, we kind of we have the power to reason. We have the power to use our power of reason. And so therefore, when we fail to do so, it's kind of like our own responsibility. Animals don't really have that sense. So I feel like they're more innocent. And they have to trust us to some extent. And if we kill an animal, I think it's our responsibility to do it instantly, right? Imagine having you've seen on TV and movies and stuff, probably it's probably worse than it looks even on TV. When you slice an animal's throat, that is not a way to kill an animal. That's a horrible way to torture an animal to death. Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate that. Yeah. Isn't it? They're so cute and cuddly, but I know that they're part of an ecosystem and they eat each other and that sort of thing. And cats play with their prey and stuff, and I regret that. So I feel like we have the responsibility to not be like that, and we should care. Margarine is one molecule away from being plastic. Yep, that is so true. As a matter of fact, I think margarine would it'd probably make a great lubricant for my motorcycle chain or something. So that's pretty nasty stuff. Oh, I have a YouTube comment. Did you say you would rather kill another person rather than an animal? No, I don't believe in violence at all. So I would never kill another person unless I was defending myself. And even then, I would try not to kill that person unless I had absolutely no choice. So I don't mean it like that. I believe in we can't, as a group of humans, we can't have violence as part of our thing that we do. 4 lung diseases started with smokes. Yeah, me too. I had a collapsed lung from smoking cigs. That was no picnic. A bear or wolf, I would not think twice. That's a good point. I'm not very good at, if I was an outdoorsman, like how I would handle that, because I believe that they have the right to exist and that sort of thing, and do their thing. I would want to not interfere as much as possible. So, but I know that wolves will come and take people's livestock and stuff like that, and sometimes you need to defend your livestock. They'll kill wolves and stuff. Collapsed lungs do suck. Yes, they do. Cost a fortune. We have Goddard's Law concerning abuse to animals. Yeah, we do too. We have some. I don't know if we have that exact thing, but we have something like where there is a special problem with that. If an adult is abusing an animal, it's a serious problem. And I'm a small government guy, so I'm not big on law. But man, I find that painful to read about when it happens. Listen to a bear is just a lazy day when they don't want to find. Yeah, a good point. That's a good point. I think a bear should be able to do its thing, and we try to not interfere as much as possible. You had one from a biopsy? Had one what? A collapsed lung? Holy crow. That is no fun, I'll tell you what. I had the surgery done with no pain meds, so I remember it. It helped me quit smoking, though. The fear of that having that happen again, it helped me quit smoking, because I was I was so addicted. I had my first cigarette at the age of 13. I never went a day without a cigarette from that day forward. I was addicted instantly. Obviously a good drug of choice for me. So, not a good choice, but I mean, it was the drug of choice for my chemistry. And my dad smoked 2.5, 3 packs a day since he was aged at 8 years old, so I guess it runs in the family. And my lung collapsed 10 years later, and they said if I would continue to smoke, it'd be more likely to recollapse. And believe me, I could feel that it wanted to recollapse, so I quit. Don't feel bad, guys. Meat is essential. Yeah, I mean, to some extent, I do believe that if you look at our teeth, you can see the sharp incisors, they're meat teeth. And we have crushing teeth in the back for grains and things. So, and maybe even for bones, actually. Those crushing teeth can be good for bones. If you've ever eaten a bone, it sounds crazy, but if you put like a chicken in this slow cooker for 6 to 8 hours, the bones will become soft. And they almost become like a chalky, and you can just chew it right through it, and you get all the marrow and everything. It tastes amazing. It's amazing for your health because we don't get that in our diet. So eat bones. If you're going to kill an animal, eat the whole dang thing. Throw the whole chicken right in there, and you'll get bone broth. And bones you can literally eat, and you get to freak out people when you're eating the bone because they'll just be mind blown that you're eating a bone. I got hit by a drunk driver, pain 24 hours on couch, smoked 4 packs. Wow. Crazy, right? Yeah, I mean, that's pretty, it becomes an irresponsible thing when somebody's drinking and driving to the point where they can't control their vehicle. And because your inhibitions are affected, you don't even know you can't control your vehicle. I know it sounds nasty, right? But I swear, you guys would be surprised if you're able to eat a normal, real food diet. I'd be shocked at how easy it is to eat a bone if it's cooked properly. And I don't know particularly if you wanted to freak people out, you could eat the bone. But it actually is good, and it tastes good, and it's good for you. Bone broth is something that's missing from our diets in a big way. So it might be something to try sometime. Get a whole chicken, throw it in the slow cooker. Throw a couple of spices in there, some potatoes and onions maybe, whatever, and you'd be amazed. My main account where I had the astronaut helmet. Did numinous deer scopes. Oh, no kidding. Yeah, I'm not a hunter, but it's broad daylight, 4 and 7 day. I'm not a hunter, but I can appreciate that you can hunt your own food. You can kill the animal your way, hopefully in a as humane as a possible kind of way. I never ate a whole chicken in its bones before. That's interesting. Yeah, it's amazing, right? I almost discovered that by accident. That I was cooking whole chickens in my slow cooker, and I just noticed that when I pushed on one of the bones, it just kind of fell apart. And I did some reading. I was like, oh yeah, I did some research, and it turns out that's edible. Particularly, like say you have like a leg bone where the knob of the knee goes down and the knob at the bottom. Those knobs cook first, so you can eat them first. And when you go in there, you'll see the bone marrow. There's a huge amount of bone marrow inside those knobs. It doesn't really taste like anything. It's not gross. It's not like sticky or weird or anything. It's just like it tastes just like the chicken soup, and it has a little bit of a chalkiness to it. And you know you're eating something that's like hyper nutrition, particularly because we don't get a lot in our diet from day to day dieting. So something to try if you're in that kind of mindset. You want to be trying to be as natural as possible, kind of thing, and eating all parts of the animal, that sort of thing. I don't know if it works on bigger bones, but I know people will throw bones into their stew just to get the bone broth and then take the bones out. That's not a bad option either if you want to try that. You get the nutrition from the bone broth itself. You can also buy organic bone broth straight up. And I've had it. It tastes a little chalky, doesn't have a lot of flavor, and you can add some like garlic and onion powder to it if you wanted to, and just drink it down the hatch as a tonic, like a medical tonic or something. I got this for $2 at the health store the other day, just to try. I got a bunch of different flavors to try. Take some vitamins, you'll be good. Maybe. I don't know, man. I'm a little skeptical about the vitamin thing because it's only got, I think this has only 8 grams of carbs in the whole entire bottle. If you drink the whole thing, you'd get 8 grams. But here's why I'm skeptical about vitamins. From what I understand, apparently, like some of the vitamins are treated as a toxin by the body and filtered out through the liver. Whereas natural vitamins are, I think, more bioavailable, absorbed more readily, or natural foods, you can absorb the vitamins from them more readily. And to prove that, go back and study the white bread issue. When they first made bleached flour, they discovered that people were getting sick because they were bleaching and taking out the nutrition out of the bread. It made the bread keep longer, and people seemed to like it better. Dropped 29C last night. Yeah, makes me pee almost orange. Yeah, the vitamins. Yeah, it's getting filtered. Yeah, getting filtered out by the liver and kidneys. A lot of it. But but here's the thing. So they said, all right, we're going to spray this bread to make it have enough vitamins, and that worked. But if you look at the amount that they sprayed, it's quite a lot compared to organic bread that doesn't have any spray on it whatsoever. But people have been eating organic bread for years, for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and didn't have a problem. So obviously the very small amount of vitamins in that bread was enough to keep people from getting sick. But to make white bread work, they had to spray it with massive amounts of vitamins to make that work. So that kind of implies that if you eat a natural whole foods diet, you probably don't need to supplement vitamins. And you might not want to supplement vitamins if there's some kind of a taxing on your liver and that sort of thing. I just don't know. When in doubt, go the natural route, that kind of thing. You know, I'll do what happened for millions. Like animals have had stomachs for hundreds of millions of years. So I'm just trying to start there, and then if we want to get sort of fancy with synthetic things like GMOs and vaccines and vitamins, I think we need to be really careful about how we do it. Just going willy-nilly and hitting our kids with 74 doses of vaccine for diseases that may or may not even be a threat. At what point are the vaccines more threatening than the disease itself? That kind of thing. I feel like we should try to go the natural route as much as possible, kind of thing. So here's an example of what they call nature's multivitamin. And it doesn't need to actually have a lot. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that or not. But the other thing I like to do is organic kelp powder. Kelp powder has something like 70 or 80 different vitamins and minerals in it, in little small amounts, but it comes from kelp, so it should be more bioavailable that way. So those are the kind of approaches I like to take for my vitamins. But I will say this: I'll do vitamin D because I'm not getting any sunshine here in New York. I use this one here. It's a lot more expensive than your typical vitamin D, but I have no problem using the cheap one either, which is only $2 a bottle. I don't know if I have one sitting here or not, but this one's not cheap because it's got the K2 in it. Not sure if that camera can focus on that, but you guys get the idea. This is the Now brand. You can get vitamin D3 for like $2 in this brand. It's one of the only things I would recommend to supplement because if you're living in a place where you're not getting a lot of sunlight directly on your skin, or if you take too many showers, because even if you get sun on your skin, when you take a shower, you wash a lot of it off. It doesn't have time to absorb as much. So I'd recommend a vitamin D supplement as being the most important supplement. And I think Dr. Rhonda Patrick, she's a biochemist, she recommended the same thing. If you're going to take any vitamin, she said it should be D3. Have you seen the website that tests vitamins? Probiotics for action ingredients. Are you referring to naturalnews.com? Mike Adams, my son, had Bell's palsy when he was 5. Then the day after vaccines, he had 14. It came back. No kidding. Yeah, I mean, you could think of it as brain inflammation, maybe. You know, autoimmune disease. North Olmsted, Ohio was. So, oh, you're in Ohio? Okay. It's got to be. Yeah, I saw that cold air come in last week. But I don't know. I don't know much about Bell's palsy, but generally things that are related to brain inflammation can cause neurological symptoms. And if you have autoimmune disease, anything that's causing your brain to swell or malfunction can cause all kinds of a myriad of different symptoms, and they all have a different sort of name. A virus on a facial nerve. No kidding. Interesting. I'll have to do some research on that and get more familiar with it. So I recommend for anyone who has brain inflammation issues, taking that as the first step. And as far as vaccines go, again, I go back to I just don't trust them. Guilty until proven innocent is my approach. The doctors that are promoting this stuff are just taking the information from the CDC. The CDC is a government agency. They are in bed with Big Pharma. They rotate back and forth from Big Pharma to Big Government. I don't trust them. I'm not saying that vaccines don't work, but I am suggesting that 74 doses is it's just going to get to be more. It's going up and up and up and up. You know, there's just I think we're fools to actually trust them. Reason and logic is not really supporting their position, and they have an incentive towards corruption. So all those things together makes me suspicious. And of course, there's so many people that have anecdotes of having problems with vaccines. That's also important, but even just using just basic logic and reason, I think it reveals that's not a good idea. Initially came from the vaccines he got when he was 5. Yeah, that's absolutely possible. It really is. There's no doubt that there's documented cases of vaccines causing the thing they were trying to quote unquote trying to treat or prevent. No doubt about it. Again, I don't trust them. I don't believe that they can possibly care enough. Hey, what's going on, Linda? We're having some skipping here and there. It kind of went away and came back miraculously. Not sure how that happened, but it worked. So when in doubt, they're guilty until proven innocent. So I would try to even protect my cat from vaccines. As I don't think that they're vaccines that they need. I'll do whatever I can to avoid that. There's ways you can do it. If you read the law, you can opt out. In most cases, you can opt out from most every vaccine. There's a few in California now that I think we cannot opt out from if the kids are going to go to public school. And of course, you'll get ridiculed by the quote-unquote scientific community in some cases. The name Taylor can either be English, British, or German in origination. That's a good question. I'm not sure about that. I guess I'll have to look into that one because I wondered if it had something to do with being a Taylor, just like Smith is a last name, that sort of thing. And it became a popular first name somehow. So, what was I going into? There was another, I got sidetracked on one thing. I can't remember what it was. What we were getting into, that was really interesting. But, yeah, guys, if I could just, brain inflammation, right? Okay, so brain inflammation, the number one thing that causes inflammation is the simple carb issue. The blood sugar spikes, the insulin. That's happening to kids, it's happening to adults. Some kids are having diabetes early on. So that's part of it. And the other part of it is damaged fats. Probiotics as well. I like to touch on that one too. The American Heart Association came out and said coconut oil was bad and vegetable oil good. And that's pretty recent, actually. That's really disturbing. If you take vegetable oil and heat it up, it has polyunsaturated fats. Those fats get damaged, and the damaged fats cause inflammation and tissue damage. It causes free radicals and oxidative damage to tissue. So that's probably the number 2 thing that causes damage behind simple carbs. So the American Heart Association has a check mark with a heart on the box of Cheerios. I don't know if it's still on there, but it was on there for the longest time. The USDA on the food pyramid has bread and pasta at the bottom of the food pyramid as the base of our nutrition. That's also probably changed by now, I'm pretty sure. But that's what we were taught. So we have all these government agencies. The CDC's recommended 74 doses. I mean, if you go by the book and listen to the boss, the guy with the clipboard and the white coat, you can end up sick as hell. If you listen to some nutty, fringy, psycho chiropractor that's telling you to do natural things, you'll probably be a lot better off. And I say that in sarcastic. I don't think they're psycho at all. I think that they don't have a medical license to lose, so they can actually tell you the truth and say what to not do and that sort of thing. I don't have a medical license, so I can say whatever I want. I'm not recommending for anybody to take any kind of pill or any unusual thing. I'm telling them to eat chicken bones and stuff we've been eating for millions of years, that sort of thing. So luckily, you don't need a permit to say those things, at least not yet. So if you can see the pattern here, where the academia and the professionals are peddling this stuff that's profitable. And I'm a capitalist. I'm not saying that profit is the evil. My doctor says eat more fruit and vegetables. I would agree with the vegetables part, but I'd be a little weary of the fruit part. Keep in mind that apples aren't this big for the last hundreds of millions of years. If there were even apples, maybe 100 million years, they've probably been around. Apples are this big. That's a real apple. Let's try and get in the camera. I'm like going backwards here. That's an apple, a crab apple. So the point being that a whole apple is way too much freaking sugar. It'll definitely throw your liver for a loop. Bananas are not this big. They're this big, and they're full of seeds. The same crock pot, no kidding. So I learned about this in the book. I think it was, I can't think of the name of it, but it was about evolutionary nutrition. And she was trying to explain, it was called the Paleo Manifesto. iPhone 6a? This is an S6 that you're seeing here. I don't know if you were talking to me or not. 6S? Oh yeah, my wife has the 6 Plus. I have a Galaxy S6 that looks a lot like a 6. It's about the same size. But I wish I had an iPhone 6 for this because I could broadcast from my phone. But I happen to be an Android fan for this is my actual phone that I use on my Verizon. So, but oh shoot, I forgot where I was going with the other one here. Oh yeah, I was just talking about professionals and how it all kind of like all these professional systems line up and get you in trouble where the chiropractor can kind of go tell you the real deal. And not just chiropractors, naturopaths and that sort of thing. I said 6S is the night you have. Oh. Not good. Yeah, potassium can be out of balance with sodium. And the bananas are supposed to supply potassium, but we eat a lot of sodium that's added to a lot of our processed foods, and I think they kind of like counteract each other somehow. So if you get out of balance in the direction of too much sodium, then or if you have enough potassium, if you have too much sodium, it like blocks out your potassium or something like that. So my recommendation is to go easy on the added sodium. I'm a nurse. That is bad. Yep. No to chiropractors here, never again. Yeah, and I don't even mean like actually getting adjusted. I mean like the chiropractors that do holistic health. Are you in the service? Why prayer rest? I'm not in the service. No, if that's what you were asking for me. So what was the other thing? Oh yeah, probiotics. I believe that if you wanted to get the best setup for probiotics, it would be to quit eating the flour and sugar and simple carbs and try to eat a more balanced diet of carbs, fats, and proteins. And the potassium, right? So I would say look at your salt intake to see if that can change your potassium levels, but be wary of the large fruits, the amount of sugars that are in it. I think you'll get a better balance of sodium and potassium just by eating a natural diet, but you can get out of balance if you go by in a processed food diet. You can get out of balance. It's a very common problem. But like all things, start with the sugar and see if that fixes it. Because I mean, it's going to fix so much stuff. It's just nuts. Are you talking possibly, at least, are you talking about Dr. Bergman by any chance? He's a chiropractor out in California that is into holistic health, and he covers so many topics. A lot of it is chiropractic. You know what's funny is that if I stand there and look at my spine, you'll see a curve to the side, a very slight curve. And I always had a bad posture because I'm very thin and I just like slump over, play video games and stuff my whole life. So I do believe that I could benefit from some adjusting. I'm not saying that the adjusting is bad, but for me, I'm more interested in what they have to say about general and health in general. Motivational doc, I'll have to check that out. I'm always interested in those kind of things, and there's so many good ones on YouTube. But to fix your digestive system, I think the primary thing is to quit the flour and sugar, and that's the starting point. I see my doctor soon. Must discuss this. I feel tired all the time. Yep. Fatigue is definitely a side effect of having your blood sugar going like this all the time, up and down, up and down. That'll send you for a loop. And over time, you can get adrenal fatigue from caffeine and so many other things. Maybe even adrenal fatigue just from eating sugar to get the pick me up. I don't know how that could work. But again, it's guilty until proven innocent. I'd say quit the sugar and the flour, if possible, if you can do it. I think you'll see your energy go through the roof. It's actually freaky. But as soon as you start feeling good, you're going to want to go out and celebrate, which means cake and stuff like that, right? Check them out for posture stuff for sure. Lots of mass stretches. Yeah, I need to do that for sure. Linda says, Steve, please see your doctor soon. Yeah, potassium levels get out of whack. And when you have potassium and sodium issues, you can have water issues. That's part of what happened to my inner ear. Got to go? All right, we'll check you later. It was good info. Thank you for bringing that in. Cool. So sodium and potassium can kind of relate to your water balance. In my inner ear, you have sodium and potassium separated, and somehow your ear uses that mechanism. When that gets out of whack, you can be in big trouble. Water issues, ear, why? Yeah, so that's one of the first things they told me to do was cut salt and take diuretics. Because I had sodium-potassium balance issues, I never ate anything with potassium, first of all, and I was eating processed foods. Like, you ever seen how much salt is in Velveeta shells and cheese? It's insane. So it makes sense that they were thinking, like, I have a water issue, I have swelling in the inner ear, which is causing my problems. But the truth is, they were wrong. In my opinion, flat out wrong. I would not recommend to take diuretics and quit salt unless you're going to continue taking the sugar diet. If you're going to discontinue the sugar diet, you probably won't need the diuretics, and you probably won't need to cut your salt. Lee said, I'm not drinking, want to vomit. Not drinking water most days, want to vomit. Yeah, so what you probably have, Lisa, is inflammation in the intestines. It hurts. Okay? It's like having a sore throat, but in your stomach. It causes nausea and pain and discomfort. So I don't think there's anything in the world that can treat that better than a dietary approach. And if you don't do a dietary approach, there's probably nothing that they really can do to treat it. They can only treat the symptoms. So if we can't get to the cause, then we can only treat the symptoms. And doctors love to do that because they get to write tons of scripts, and you keep on coming back, and you keep on coming back, and it's all patented. It's a very common thing. Yeah, it's I would say it's disease number 4, autoimmune disease. It's becoming more and more of a problem. We have kids that they're told that they have hundreds of allergies. I call total BS on that. I don't think they have hundreds of allergies. I think that they have leaky gut. So you have undigested proteins getting into the bloodstream. So when anything you eat, you get the proteins into your bloodstream, and you think, oh, I have an allergy to chicken. Well, probably not. If you can address the leaky gut, then you'll probably not be allergic to chicken in most cases. So thanks, Moonjae. So that to me is the real solution to the problem. What they would do is they diagnose all the allergies, and they'll put the kid in a hypoallergenic lifestyle as best as they can, and they'll continue eating the sugar processed food diet. So in order to help our kids, we have to, like when their birthday comes along, we give them ice cream cake. You know what I mean? That's almost like the worst thing we could ever do to our kids, probably, huh? They refuse to admit leaky gut. That's insane. I mean, you can feel a sore throat. You can see the tissue damage and feel how much it hurts, and it can be the same thing down here. Way more allergies than before. Yeah, I totally agree. Doesn't it seem like it's getting worse and worse, especially in kids? I don't remember when I was in school, there wasn't that kind of thing really going on as much. So I think the combination of like massive doses of vaccines plus leaky gut is causing chaos with the immune system. And everybody reacts differently. Some people end up with IBS symptoms. In my case, my inner ear blew out. Some people are getting heart disease, behavioral issues, brain inflammation, depression, anxiety, ADD. Although I don't know that ADD is actually a behavioral issue necessarily the way that was presented. I think that some kids aren't meant to be intellectuals, and they should be athletes or bricklayers or whatever. And when you tell them, sit still, little Johnny, stop moving in your chair, like that's probably not, they probably should move as much as they want as kids. I'm bedridden all the time. Sorry, at least I'm trying to go through that. Yeah, absolutely. It's totally debilitating. When I was 13, I had nausea from stress and digestive inflammation. I was in high school and I hated it. And I was eating Doritos and ice cream sandwiches for lunch every day, Frosted Flakes for dinner, Rice Krispies. That was my diet all day, every day. And I had nauseous episodes every single day. It was absolutely debilitating. Not as bad as being bedridden all day, but only because I was young. If I was older, I would end up in there for sure. I'd probably end up just like that. So I never did quit all that crap. I kept on eating it. What saved me back then was the fact that I was young enough. I started doing weightlifting and training. And for some reason, that like snapped me out of it. I could burn off that junk food better or something. I got my blood sugar more right. But I continued to eat the junk. My mom always said, someday you're going to get really sick. And she was right. I do believe it's dietary. So if you have IBS, you have inflammation in the intestines, the number one thing to address that is, like I said, it's the simple carbs. I think what they're suggesting in most cases is cooked vegetables to transition away from simple carbs. It's probably going to be unpleasant or hurt. Like you said, if you can't even drink water, then you know that your digestive system is inflamed to that extent. I was the same way. When I would drink water, my freaking ear would get worse. And I can't believe that, right? That seems like the worst thing. I would take a swig, and then a few minutes later, the swelling would come back into my ear, and so I was starting to associate water with my pain. It's crazy. Yeah, my health speech would probably get very boring to anyone who, because my solution is always the same, but that's okay. If it's the truth, it's the truth. And I think that some of the things that represent, that prove or support the idea is the fact that, first of all, we're all doing it, and we all didn't used to. This is all something new. There was never a time in history where we had so much simple carbs available. I started back with cardio, even at least 25 minutes a day. It literally helps the way you look at your day. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It's when you're sick, exercise is a stress. But if you're young, you can withstand, you can snap yourself out of it maybe with that. I was able to snap myself out of my sickness a couple different times, with exercise. And I know that my friend who has blood sugar problems has to exercise to keep it under control. I have attention problems. You talk, I'm not distracted, kind of weird. Well, that's cool. Like I said, I hope it helps. There's so many people that are dealing with different issues that maybe you haven't been exposed to the idea that they have the power to actually do something about it. Because I think financially and health-wise, we have the power at home. It's not the lab coats all lined up telling us to take their pills, and in some cases they're right, but I think in the vast majority of cases of chronic disease, that they can't do a thing for us. We're the only ones who can do anything about it, and that's in one way that's a message of hope, because it means you may have the power to actually do something to fix it, and that I find very empowering. Certainly for me, when they told me I had to take these diuretic pills and change my diet for life, more people try to exercise. Yeah, that's for sure. And some doctors are getting on board with that. I used to study and promote exercise a huge amount, but I've gotten to the point now where I don't. In my own life, I emphasize the nutritional side of things, because I used to weightlift and I would try to get bigger muscles because I was such a thin guy. And I studied Arnold Schwarzenegger's Modern Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, and I was getting bigger. I went from like 140 to like 170 something pounds, and I actually looked like I had a small head, because I already have a small head. So when I got bigger, it made my head look small, and I was like, okay, cool, I gained some weight. It didn't help. So I stopped doing that, and I dropped all my weight. But I continued. I would go weightlift and then eat spaghetti. I was eating French toast and pancakes and stuff like that. So it was like I was still doing the bad diet thing. Now, once I quit exercising, I lost all my weight and then some. I went down to like 125, 130. I looked like a skeleton. I still look pretty thin as it is. If you can imagine me with 20, 30 less pounds, that's how I looked. And but when I quit the sugar, I didn't start exercising. I just was working around the house doing basic chores and like carrying blocks and stuff. Nothing in the gym at all. But I gained all my weight back. I was up to 150 something pounds without doing any training at all. So I think that it kind of shows that the dietary issues are probably critical more than anything. Here's the beef stew. As you can probably not see, because it may be too far away, it needs more water, which is cool. So that means that all the beans and everything and all the flour has absorbed it, and it's cooking nice and hot. So it'll be ready on time, which I think was 12:15 is when it should be ready. It smells pretty good, but I haven't put my spices in there yet. I think I'm going to hang out until towards the end to put my spices in, because a lot of it's going to cook off anyways, I want to get as much of that goodness I can out of the garlic and onion and turmeric and all that stuff. I think I'll put a little bit of turmeric in there now, though, because it's an antioxidant. And it's, you can never have too much turmeric anyways. It doesn't really taste like anything. Some people say that extra virgin olive oil, the reason it's so great is because of the antioxidants that it has, and the fact that it's low in polyunsaturated fat. And a lot of our modern processed food diets don't have many antioxidants in them. So I try to aim for the ones that do, which is why I look for stuff that has a lot of color. Blue corn chips, it's probably not a great food as a health food, but as a transitionary food for people who are trying to get away from sugar. It's, finding organic blue corn chips that are actually whole grain corn that's been ground up in small doses might not be a bad way to kind of help transition away, because they have the antioxidants in the corn, which makes it purple, makes it blue. Sometimes they look almost black. Some of these lentils actually look black. Blueberries, same thing. It's anthocyanins and antioxidants is what makes it turn that color. I'll put a little more water in there. And of course the spirulina, it's so green, you know, it's insane. You can use it as a dye. That's got to be a good thing. Taylor's been putting it in her spaghetti. I put it in my oat bran when I make oat bran from time to time. So look for color. I know a lot of doctors say that too. You should put a lot of color on your plate. You know, red peppers and green peppers and orange carrots, purple carrots, dark colored leafy greens. In my health. I have like a whole health plan that I wrote down. I did a scope about it. It was like rule number 1 was a simple carbs. Rule number 2 was bring in the vegetables, green leafy vegetables in particular, but vegetables in general. Try to figure out a way to get them into your diet. Rule number 3 was the fats. It was the healthy fats, making sure not to eat the damaged, cheap soybean oils and stuff like that. One of the ways I bring vegetables in is with this. It's organic, it's cheap. That's kind of cheap. It's $2 a can. It's low in sodium, so you can add your own pink salt if you want to. It's quick and easy. You know, it's got a pop top. You don't have to cook it. You can just pop the top and eat it with a spoon. If you're like me, I don't really care. If I'm hungry, I need energy for work. I need to get out in the woods or something, ride my dirt bike, whatever it is. I'll eat a can of soup, and I don't care if it's cooked. I don't really care what it tastes like, but it does taste pretty good, especially if your taste buds are not used to like cake or anything like that. So that's a really easy way to conveniently get cooked vegetables into your diet. And of course, it's low carbs. I think this whole can, if you hammered the entire can, you're going to get like 30, let's see, probably not focusing quite right. Net carbs on this would be 36. So you're going to get 8 grams of fat, 36 carbs, 12 fiber, and 14 protein if you eat this whole can. Vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, and iron, and probably a whole bunch of stuff that we don't even know, compounds that we don't even know about yet. They're discovering healthy compounds in things like broccoli and different foods like that. They discover them all the time. Vitamin K2 was discovered to help people's bones and teeth. We didn't even know that it existed, but it only exists in grass-fed dairy products. Grain-fed dairy products don't have it. So there's an example of why it's better to make the synthetic approach to things guilty until proven innocent. We didn't know that grass-fed lacked vitamin K2, and that vitamin K2 was helpful for calcium channel regulation. So that could affect bones and teeth. Well, we have lots of problems with bones and teeth, but if we don't have K2, then how can we supplement calcium? It's crazy. Can I send you an email on Taylor's email? For sure. Let's see. What email do I have? If you want to email me anytime, I should put this up on my my Periscope thing. It's f4ij@yahoo.com. That's F as in Frank, the number 4, I as in indigo, and J at yahoo.com, F4ij. So anytime you need to get so you got an article or something you want to send, by all means, please send it over. I'll check it out. And I check that email probably every day or two. I'm in there, at least breezing through there from every day or two. So yeah, feel free to contact me on there. I'm always doing research and always interested in learning more and trying to find like evidence that basically I'm really interested when I find evidence of, like I said, where we have the power to change our own health and change our own wealth and all that fun stuff. Something you can do at home. I was disappointed when the doctors told me I needed to take diuretics. It sounds like, I was like, great, so it's something I'm going to need to take for the rest of my life in order to feel all right. I just have this sneaking suspicion it's not a good idea. And after I did some research, I found out that it was like, apparently it's like really bad for your liver and kidneys or something like that. I can't remember the details, but when I read up on it, I was kind of horrified. And Dr. Bergman has a whole entire talk about diuretics and what's wrong with them. And so many people today have immune system issues and are being prescribed diuretics instead of treating the actual cause of the problem. By the way, bodybuilders knew this a long time ago, that if you cut carbs, you'll cut up. You'll get definition in your muscles. And when you, the other thing that causes you to get definition is cutting salt. So They figured, but they already knew this, that when you eat a lot of carbs, you get bloated. Went down to 89 pounds. Oh my God. That sounds like Taylor. I've done something with lungs not heard. Oh, I'm only seeing part of that comment, aren't I? Sorry guys, I'm still a newbie. I'm trying to figure these things out. Uh-oh. No, I really did it. Taylor's upstairs scoping. She's my tech support. Basically what happened is I went deep into I went out of my broadcast Periscope producer section here. Join broadcast? It's okay. Did I stop or no? I don't even know. But yeah, so the bodybuilders figured this out, that eating carbs will cause you to puff up, which means you're holding water. And now we have all these people that people may be watching. Okay, so I did end the broadcast and come back, I think. But hey, what's going on, Martin? I think I might have ended my broadcast and came back, but we were going on a beef stew extravaganza here. It's cooking. Got enough water in there now. It's lentils and beef. And apparently not beans, because I accidentally don't have the beans. So people that have water issues, they're prescribing diuretics, but yet the bodybuilders knew that if you cut carbs, you'll drop all that water weight. So if you have inflammation from water weight that's pressing on, whether it be brain inflammation or in your ear or anywhere in your body, swelling and pain, it would make sense to address that first by cutting the simple carbs. I have a friend of mine who literally eats carbs and he bloats up instantly. His digestive system and his face and everything, you can see the water. So if you want to drop that water without having to take diuretics, that becomes an interesting idea to try. In other words, if we haven't even tried that and we automatically defaulted to the water pill, then we might not be doing ourselves a favor, especially for long-term issues. All right, cool. So it crashed. All right, guys. Well, I don't think I'm still broadcasting, but if I am, thank you for watching, and I'll be back.